Hello friends, welcome to MS Technologies. Today I'm going to discuss very top trending Spring Boot interview questions with good explanation also. I'm going to do multiple videos on Spring Boot and microservices interview questions. This is the first video I did. Let's move on to the video first. What is Spring Boot? Most of the people are feeling like Spring Boot is a framework. But coming to reality, Spring Boot is not a separate framework. Then what is this? It is just an approach to develop Spring based applications. Whatever the applications we are developing by using Spring framework, all those applications we can develop by using Spring Boot also. Then what is the difference between Spring and Spring Boot? If you go for Spring framework, we have to do a lot of configurations explicitly. But coming to Spring Boot, we no need to do all those configurations. With less number of configurations, we can develop the applications by using Spring Boot. Where we will use this Spring Boot? Suppose if you want to develop the applications by using microservices architecture based applications, microservice by using microservices architecture, if you want to develop the applications, there this Spring Boot will play very important key role. In microservices, what we are developing, we are developing all services. So to develop those services happily, we can use this Spring Boot. What is the main objective of this Spring Boot? The main objective of Spring Boot is auto configuration. Auto configuration in the sense what? Whenever we are developing an application, we need some predefined functionalities for our project. So those things will be taken care by Spring Boot as part of this auto configuration. If you want any predefined functionality, if you want any predefined classes, right, explicitly we no need to do anything. This boot will take care everything as the part of this auto configuration. Clear? This is what is a Spring Boot. Next, so what is the differences between Spring and Spring Boot? If you compare with the Spring, in Spring Boot we have several features are there. What features are there? So here I noted some of the features. One is a starter pom, version management, auto configuration, component scanning, embedded server, in-memory database, actuators. All these things we are getting. All these things we are getting along with this Spring Boot. What is this starter pom? Suppose I developed Spring based project by using Maven as a build tool. So when we use Maven as build tool, we need to configure required dependencies in our Maven pom.xml file. I need web related jars, I need Hibernate jars, I need aspect jars, I need JUnit related jars. Right? What are the dependencies are required? Those things we are going to configure in our project pom.xml file. To avoid this problem, Spring Boot come up with a concept called starter poms. What is the advantage of this starter poms? With this starter pom, our Maven configuration will be simplified. Our Maven configuration will be simplified. So now we have seen several dependencies in pom.xml of Spring application. Whereas if you go for Spring Boot, this one starter is sufficient to develop a web application. We have starter, right, Spring Boot starter web dependency. This starter will download all the required jars for running our web application based on Spring Boot. See here, if you go to application, see here I'm going to take pom.xml file. Here we have one starter dependency is available. One starter dependency is available. Assume this is Spring Boot starter. This is the starter dependency. Right. Apart this dependency, here am I taking any other dependencies? No, I'm not taking. To develop this application, to run this application, whatever the dependencies are required, all those dependencies, this starter dependency will download internally. This starter, one starter dependency will download all required dependencies to run our application. We no need to configure all dependencies inside pom.xml file explicitly. But if you go for Spring based applications, right, we need to configure web related jars, we need to configure hibernate related jars, we need to configure JUnit related jars, everything we need to configure explicitly. But coming to Spring Boot, so this one starter dependency is enough. This one starter dependency is going to download all required jars internally. We no need to configure any external dependencies at here. That is the advantage of starter form. That is the advantage of starter form. What it is doing? It is simplifying. It is simplifying Maven configuration. This starter form is simplifying Maven configuration. Next, what is another feature? Version management. Version management. Whenever you are configuring dependencies in Spring based project, we need to choose version number also. Which version of the Spring framework we need to use, which version of the Hibernate we need to use, which version of the servlet we need to use, which version of the JDBC, right, driver we need to use. All these version numbers should be taken care by programmer in Spring based project. Correct or not? Everything programmer needs to take care in Spring based project. Right. Suppose if you go with this Spring Boot, version numbers will be taken care by Spring Boot only. Programmer no need to concentrate on version numbers. That version numbers also will be taken care by Spring Boot only. The reason is Boot provided a concept called starter form. Boot provided a concept called starter form. So there one starter which is called Spring Boot starter parent. If you go to this, here we have one starter Spring Boot starter parent. Spring Boot starter parent. See here you can able to see. Here we have one starter Spring Boot starter parent is there. Spring Boot starter parent. So for this parent starter, we will configure the version number. See here, I am configuring version number also 2.3.3. We are configuring version number also for this starter parent. When we configured version number for the parent starter, so this will take care of version numbers for all the child dependencies. Here it follows parent and child association. Parent and child association. This starter parent is the parent dependency. Remaining all dependencies whatever we are taking inside this dependencies section, all are child dependencies. This one is the parent dependency. Remaining all are whatever we are taking inside this dependency section, these are the child dependencies. So now at the time of taking this starter parent, we need to configure the version number also, right? For remaining all child dependencies, version number we no need to configure. Why? We no need to configure version number for remaining all child dependencies. Why? So here, see here we are taking the version number for parent, right? This one will take care. This one will take care of version number for all the child dependencies that we are configuring. Right? Suppose if we configure child dependency Spring Boot starter web, for this which version is going to consider? That based on the parent starter version only. Based on the parent starter only. Suppose I want to use the data JPA. For that data JPA, I'm not configuring any version number because that will be taken care by parent starter only. Right? So this is the advantage of version management. And Version management means we no need to specify the version number for child dependencies. Here we have one starter parent dependency is there. For this we need to specify the version number. This starter parent will take care of remaining child dependencies version numbers. Explicitly programmer no need to specify the version numbers for child dependencies, right? So like this we have several other features also is there. Auto configuration is there, component scanning is there, embedded servers, right? Spring Boot is providing some embedded servers. And which servers Spring Boot is providing? Tomcat embedded server and ZT embedded server. Happily we can use those embedded servers. In-memory DB. Boot is providing one in-memory database also, which is H2 database. And suppose if you want to do, we can use that H2 database for temporary purpose. And that is not permanent storage. And that is not permanent storage. Suppose if you want to develop any POC kind of applications, POC, proof of concept, any POC kind of applications, in that case we can use this temporary H2 database kind of things. This is not a permanent DB, this is the temporary DB, right? H2 DB, which is provided by Spring Boot internally. Next, Spring Boot is providing actuators also. What is the use of these actuators? By using these actuators, we can monitor the application. And after deploying the application into server, we need to monitor that application. How you can able to monitor? To monitor the application, Spring Boot is providing actuators concept. So like this, we have several features are available in Spring Boot compare with the Spring. Right, let me go for next question. How to change the port number? How to change the embedded Tomcat server port number in Spring Boot? And here if you open application.properties file, and here we have resource folder is there. Here we have resources. See, source main resources is there. Inside this we have application.properties file is there. Application.properties file is there. If you open this file, inside this we can take server dot port is equal to 7075. So like this we can able to change the port number. And how to change the embedded Tomcat server port number in Spring Boot? In application.properties file, take server.port is equal to port number. Like this we can able to change the port number, right? Let me go for next question. Right. So here, very important question. What at the rate Spring Boot annotation? At the rate Spring Boot application annotation. Sorry, here the question is at the rate Spring Boot application annotation. At the rate Spring Boot application annotation, not at the rate Spring Boot. At the rate Spring Boot application annotation will do internally. Right. So here, so this is the predefined annotation. And so this is a predefined. Spring Boot is providing this annotation where we need to specify this annotation, right, inside the main class. Main class means what? Wherever we have main method, that is the main class. From that class only we need to run our application, right? Inside that main class, right, we need to specify this annotation. Class level, at a class level we need to specify this annotation. So here, see, here we have main method is there. Here we have main method is there. At class level, we need to take this annotation. At the rate Spring Boot application annotation. At the rate Spring Boot application annotation, we need to specify at here. So this one annotation is equal to three main annotations. This one annotation, Spring Boot application annotation, is equal to three main annotations. What three main annotations? One is at the rate Spring Boot configuration. Second one is at the rate enable auto configuration. Third one is component scan. And here you can able to see. Here you can able to see what annotations are there. So here, if you copy this one, so here you can able to see This one annotation is equal to at the rate Spring Boot configuration, at the rate enable auto configuration, at the rate component scan. These are the three main annotations which we are going to use. This one annotation is equal to these three annotations. These three annotations. Right. So now tell me, what is the purpose of this at the rate Spring Boot configuration annotation? What is the purpose of yet a Spring Boot configuration annotation? This annotation represent the main class is going to work as a configuration class. Right now here, this is the main class. This is the main class. We can use this main class as a configuration class. Right? What this annotation is telling? Right? We can use this main class as a configuration class. Spring Boot configuration means this main class we can use as configuration class. What is the second one? Yet enable auto configuration. Yet enable auto configuration. This is the main feature of the Spring Boot. This is the main feature of the Spring Boot. Right. If you want to develop any project, we require some predefined functionalities. We require some predefined classes. We require some predefined interfaces. Explicitly, we no need to configure all those things boot will take care internally based on this enable auto configuration. Based on this enable auto configuration, boot will take care all those things. We no need to do anything explicitly. Right. So next one is component scan. Component scan. Right. What is component scan? In, next questions I will talk. And what about this component scan? All those things. Clear? So here what you have to remember at the rate Spring Boot application. Right? We need to specify this annotation at class level inside main class. Right? This annotation is provided by Spring Boot. This one annotation is equal to three sub annotations and three annotations. One is at the rate Spring Boot configuration, at the rate enable auto configuration, at the rate component scan. This one annotation is equal to these three annotations. Let me go for next question. What is dependency injection? This is one of the important question. What is a dependency injection? Right. So dependency injection means what? And the process of injecting dependent bean object into target bean object is called as a dependency injection. And the process of injecting dependent bean object into target bean object is called as a dependency injection. See here we have an example. See here car is the target class, car is a target bean, and this engine is a dependent bean. And car is a target bean, engine is a dependent bean. And so now what is the dependency injection? The process of injecting dependent bean object into target bean object. And now I want to inject this engine object into this car object. I want to inject this engine object into car object. And right, there is nothing but what? Dependency injection. How you will inject that? How you will inject that? And as a programmer, we no need to do anything. And by this annotation, by this at the rate auto void annotation, by this at the rate auto void annotation, we are telling to the right IOC container that IOC container will take care everything. We no need to do explicitly anything. First tell me what is dependency injection? The process of injecting dependent bean object into target bean object is called as dependency injection. Here, which one is the target bean? Car is the target bean. Which one is the dependent bean? Engine is the dependent bean. Now, I want to inject engine object into car object. Car object. And how you can able to do this? For this, we have three approaches. One is by using setter injection, another one is constructor injection, and third one is field injection. What is setter injection? Here, IOC container will inject a dependent bean object into target bean object by calling target bean setter method. We are not doing anything, and container will take care everything. Container will inject that dependent bean object into target bean object by calling target bean setter method. See here, By using this @auto void annotation, auto void annotation, I am telling to IOC container and a container, right here. I need one object. I need one object, but I don't tell which object I require. But I don't tell which object I required. So you need to guess. You need to guess which object I required and inject that object to me. Go and bring that object to me. But I don't tell which object I required to you. Here I am not telling which object I required. Right. So here by using this auto void annotation, what I am doing, I am giving the task to IOC container. I am giving the task to IOC container. Everything that IOC container will take care. Right here, car is what? Target bin. And inside target bin, we have setter method is there. By using the setter method, IOC will identify which bean object I required. IOC will guess which object I required, and IOC will go and bring that object to this target object. IOC will go and bring that object to this target object. We no need to do anything at here, and because of this auto void annotation, right, we are telling to IOC container, right, IOC, by using this setter method, whatever the dependent object I required, please go and bring that object to me. Now IOC will go and bring this engine object to this car object. See here, the IOC container will inject dependent bean object into target bean object. Here, which one is the dependent bean object? Engine is the dependent bean object. Which one is the target bean object? Car is the target bean object. Right here, setter method, target bean setter method means which one? Inside car class, we have setter method. By using that setter method, IOC will inject this engine object into car object. See here, inside car class, we have setter method is there. By using the setter method, IOC will inject this engine object. This engine object to car object is nothing but what? Dependency injection. What other ways are there? Constructor injection. Instead of setter method, IOC is going to use target bean constructor. Target bean constructor to inject a dependent bean object into target bean object is called what? Constructor injection. In previous case, what we are using? Target bean setter method. But in this case, we are going to use target bean constructor. IOC is going to use target bean constructor to inject a dependent bean object into target bean object. Is nothing but constructor injection. And next one is field injection. Field injection, and most of the people not have idea about this field injection. Here, IOC container will inject a dependent bean object into target bean object by using reflection API. And by using reflection API, IOC container will inject a dependent bean object into target object. Clear? What is dependency injection? How we can implement a dependency injection? Right. So we'll go for next question. What is Spring Boot actuators? This is very one of the important interview question. Spring Boot actuators. Right. So we are developing application. After completing the application development, we need to deploy the application into the server. We need to deploy the application into server. Once you deploy the application into the server, we need to monitor that application. 24/7 we need to monitor that application. How the application is running. How the application is running, we need to monitor 24/7. How you can able to monitor? To monitor our application, Spring Boot is providing actuators concept. What is the purpose of actuators? To monitor our application. To monitor our application, we are using this actuators concept. Right. So actuators are how actuators are monitoring our application. Actuators are used to provide production ready features for our application. What actuators are doing? It is providing production ready features for our application. By using those things, we can monitor the application. Now tell me, what is actuators? What is actuators? Once we deploy our application into the server, we need to monitor our application status. We need to monitor our application status. How we can able to monitor? To for that, Spring Boot is providing actuators concept. Right? Actuators are used to provide production ready features for our application. Right? How to enable that actuators in your project? If you want to use actuators, first you need to enable that actuators. How you will enable that actuators? If you want to enable that actuators in our application, we need to add one starter dependency inside pom.xml file. We need to add one starter dependency inside our application pom.xml file. Which starter dependency we need to add? See here, Spring Boot starter actuator. Spring Boot starter actuator dependency we need to add inside our application pom.xml file. So then automatically that actuators will be enabled. Right? To enable actuators in our application, what we need to do? We need to add this dependency inside pom.xml file. Next step. Here, what are the actuator provided endpoints? And actuators are providing some predefined endpoints, and to monitor our application. To monitor our application, we need some endpoints. Those endpoints are providing by actuators. To monitor our application, we require some endpoints. Those endpoints are providing by actuators. What endpoints? See here I noted some endpoints. One is health, second one is info, third one is beans, mappings, config props, http trace, heap dump, thread dump, shutdown, etc. Like this several endpoints, actuators are providing it here. Right? See now, when we add actuator starter dependency, to enable actuators, what we are doing? We are adding one dependency inside pom.xml file. When we added that dependency inside pom.xml file, by default, it will expose two endpoints. By default, it will expose two endpoints, which is health, application status, and application condition we can able to know by using this health endpoint. Another one is info. It will give the information about the application. Health and info. These are two endpoints. Right. By default, right, will be exposed. By default will be exposed because of that starter dependency. Right. So to expose all endpoints, we need to do some configuration. To expose all endpoints, we need to do some configuration. What configuration? Inside application.properties file or YML file. Inside application.properties or YML file, we need to add this property. See, this is the property. We need to add this property to expose all endpoints. Which property? Management. Inside that endpoints, inside that web, inside that exposure, include star. Star means all endpoints will be exposed. Star means all endpoints will be exposed. Like this, we need to expose all the endpoints. Then we can able to use any point in our application. Right? We can use any endpoint. Right? If you want to expose all endpoints for our application, we need to add this property inside application.yml file. Management endpoint web exposure include this hashtag. Hashtag means all endpoints you will get. Right. Here you are getting all endpoints. Here you are exposing all endpoints. In that, one endpoint I don't want. Only one endpoint I don't want. Then what you will do? See here, exclude beans. Beans means this beans endpoint I don't want. Beans endpoint I don't want. See here, if you observe it here, beans is one endpoint. Beans is one endpoint. First, by using star, you are exposing all these endpoints. All these endpoints. From all these endpoints, I don't want this beans. I don't want this beans. Then what you will do? At the end, take exclude beans. It will exclude that beans endpoint. Apart that bean endpoint, remaining all are exposed at here. Right? Let me go for next question. Right. So where you deploy your Spring Boot project after developing our application, we need to deploy our project, right? Where you will deploy nowadays, almost all applications are deploying into cloud environments and cloud environments. In my project, right, we are using a PCF, Pivotal Cloud Foundry, for deploying boot application. Maybe some people may use AWS also, etc., etc. Like this, we have several cloud related environments are there. There we can deploy our applications. In my project, we are using PCF, Pivotal Cloud Foundry. Okay, let me go for next question. What is at the rate component scan? At the rate component scan. Right here, we have seen already. At the rate component scan is part of at the rate Spring Boot application, and we are taking this at the rate Spring Boot application inside main class at a class level, and right, this one annotation is equal to three annotations: Spring Boot configuration, enable auto configuration, and third one is this at the rate component scan. At the rate component scan. So now by using this at the rate component scan, what we can do? What we can do, Andy? We are developing an application. Inside that application, we have several classes are there. We have several classes are there. By using this at the rate component scan, right, we can search, right, we can use this at the rate component scan for Spring Beans which are available in our project. At the rate component scan is used to search for Spring Beans which are available in our project. Right. In our project, assume several controllers are there, services are there, DAOs are there, like that several classes are there. In out of all those classes, which are the bean classes? Which are the bean classes? To identify the bean classes, we are using this at the rate component scan annotation. What is the purpose of at the rate component scan? We can use it, right, we can use this annotation to search for Spring Beans which are available in our project. Clear? This annotation is part of at the rate Spring Boot application only. This one annotation is equal to three annotations. One is at the rate Spring configuration. What that annotation will do? That annotation will represent main class as a configuration class. Second one is yet enable auto configuration. What that annotation will do? Enable auto configuration. Whenever we are deploying the application, we required some predefined functionalities, predefined classes, predefined interfaces, and all those things will be taken care by boot only, right, based on that enable auto configuration annotation. Third one is this component scan. What is the purpose of component scan? To search for Spring Beans which are available in our project. Clear? Right. I hope you guys are clear all these questions. Right. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share this video. Right. I'll come up with next video some more. In next video, I will cover some more Spring Boot and microservices interview questions. Please subscribe this video, guys. Thank you.